They called me dead weight, fired me on a Friday afternoon with no warning. By Monday, their three biggest clients had vanished along with 19% of quarterly revenue. No threats, no confrontations, just Navy envelopes, a few handwritten notes, and a very long memory. My name is Rachel Monroe, and I was 44 years old when they decided I was expendable. For 7 years, I'd been the head of strategic partnerships at Halberd Axis, a mid-tier enterprise tech company operating out of a glass tower in downtown Chicago. 7 years of building relationships, nurturing accounts, turning cold calls into million-dollar contracts. 7 years of arriving before the cleaning crew and leaving after the security guards changed shifts. The termination came at 4:47 p.m. on a Friday in November, the kind of Friday when everyone's already mentally checked out, planning their weekends, counting down the minutes until happy hour. I was reviewing Q4 projections when Kyle Jennings, our CFO, appeared at my office door. His smile was the practice kind, the one they teach you in executive coaching sessions when you need to deliver bad news without liability. "Rachel, could you join me in conference room C?" Conference room C, not the corner suite with the skyline view where we close deals, not even the mid-tier rooms with decent lighting. Conference room C was where they kept the old printer and spare chairs. It was where things went to die. HR was already there, Janet from legal. Someone from security whose name I'd never learned. A manila envelope sat on the table like a coffin at a wake. "We're restructuring," Kyle said, not meeting my eyes. "Optimizing our human capital allocation for maximum efficiency going forward." Human capital allocation. They couldn't even call me a person in my final moments. The words blurred together: severance package, COBRA benefits, non-disclosure agreement, company property. My badge would be deactivated by 5 p.m. Security would escort me to collect my belongings. "Thank you for your service." I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I simply stood, collected the envelope, and walked back to my office with security trailing behind like a funeral procession. 7 years condensed into a banker's box, a few photos. My lucky pen. The stress ball shaped like a brain that my secret Santa gave me 3 years ago. The elevator ride down felt eternal. 37 floors of descent, watching my reflection in the polished steel doors, wondering when exactly I'd become disposable. When relationships I'd spent years cultivating became numbers on a spreadsheet that didn't add up the right way. It wasn't until I reached the parking garage, loading my life into the trunk of my Lexus, that I heard them. The break room was on the second floor, windows cracked open to let out the smell of burnt coffee and microwaved fish. Kyle's voice carried down like gravel in a blender. "Finally got rid of the dead weight. Monroe's been coasting for years." Then the laughter. Sharp, cruel, celebratory. "$240K back in the budget," someone else chimed in. "Drinks are on me tonight." I stood there in the fluorescent half-light of the parking garage, holding my car keys so tight they left marks in my palm. 5 seconds. That's how long I gave myself to feel it, the rage, the humiliation, the urge to march back upstairs and tell them exactly what their optimization would cost them. 5 seconds. Then I got in my car, adjusted the rearview mirror, and drove home in perfect silence. Because silence, I'd learned, was where the best strategies were born, and I was very, very good at strategy. The envelope sat on my kitchen counter for 3 days, unopened, like a letter from a dead relative you're not ready to face. I'd established a routine wake at 6:30 a.m., make coffee, stare at the envelope, make more coffee. The severance details could wait. The humiliation was still too fresh, too raw. But on Tuesday morning, curiosity finally won. Inside, between the legal boilerplate and benefit summaries, I found it. A thick packet of spreadsheets, clearly grabbed in haste, mixed in with my termination paperwork. Someone's coffee ring stained the corner. The header made my breath catch. Strategic Partner Relationship Tracker V7.3. Confidential. Property of R. Monroe. My tracker, the system I'd built from scratch, refined over 7 years, documenting every client touchpoint with obsessive precision, not just contact information and contract values, but the real intelligence, personal details, communication preferences, trigger points, decision-making patterns. Margaret Chen at Aperture Tech, who only took calls after 2 p.m. because of her daughter's therapy sessions, James Wright at Meridian Corp., who made every major decision on his morning runs. Sarah Volkoff at Pinnacle Systems, allergic to PowerPoints but susceptible to handwritten notes. 53 key accounts, 19% of Halberd's revenue, all mapped with the thoroughness of a cartographer charting new continents. They hadn't even bothered to remove my name from the headers, hadn't scrubbed my personal notes from the margins. In their rush to package me out, they'd handed me the keys to their kingdom. I spread the pages across my dining table, running my fingers over familiar names, remembering late-night strategy sessions, crisis calls, celebrations over closed deals. These weren't just clients. They were relationships I'd cultivated like a master gardener, understanding exactly what each one needed to bloom. Page after page revealed vulnerabilities Halberd didn't even know they had. Marcus Thompson at Vertex Industries, his contract was up for renewal in 4 months, and he'd mentioned concerns about response times. Lisa Park at Quantum Solutions had confided her frustration with the recent support ticket backlog. David Martinez at Atlas Corp. Had asked specifically for me during his last 3 quarterly reviews. At the bottom of the stack, I found my handwritten notes from the October Partner Summit, margin scrawls that now read like prophecy. Kyle doesn't understand relationship equity. New team lacks emotional intelligence. They see numbers, not people. I poured myself a glass of wine, the good Malbec I'd been saving for a special occasion, and sat back to study my unintended gift. In their arrogance, they'd committed the cardinal sin of corporate warfare. They'd left the enemy with both the battle plans and the weapons. The document felt different in my hands now, not just a record of past work, but a blueprint for something else entirely. Each page whispered possibilities, suggested vulnerabilities, mapped out pressure points. I gathered the papers carefully, sliding them back into a clean manila folder. Not the termination envelope that went into the trash. This deserved better. I labeled it simply Exhibit A. Then I placed it in my desk drawer, next to the Mont Blanc pen I'd bought myself after closing my first $1 million deal. Tools of the trade, waiting for their moment. Outside, Chicago's skyline glittered in the November darkness. Halberd's tower just another light among thousands. From up there, they probably thought they were untouchable, protected by glass and steel and corporate bureaucracy. They had no idea what they'd just done. The text came at 9:15 p.m. on a Thursday, 2 weeks after my termination. Heard about Halberd, their loss, drink tomorrow. Maya. Maya Kent, former client, current chief operating officer at Redline Dynamics, and one of the few people in this industry who understood that business was personal, no matter what the MBA textbooks claimed. We'd closed a 3-year enterprise deal over bourbon and honest conversation about our failed marriages. I met her at the Violet Hour, a speakeasy in Wicker Park, where the cocktails cost $25 and the bartenders never rushed you. She was already there, commanding a corner booth, her silver hair catching the candlelight like armor. "You look good for someone who just got shivved," she said, sliding a glass of Macallan across the table. "Clean living and spite," I replied, taking a sip. The whiskey burned just right. Maya studied me with those hawk eyes that had intimidated 1,000 vendors. How bad was it? "Conference room C, Friday afternoon. They called me dead weight." She winced. "Jesus, who's handling your accounts?" "Brad Kowalski and some new kid they poached from Salesforce." Maya actually laughed, not a polite chuckle, but a genuine bark of disbelief. "Brad. The same Brad who tried to pitch me using a template where he forgot to change the company name, that Brad." "That's the one." We drank in companionable silence for a moment. The bar hummed with low conversations, deals being made over craft cocktails, alliances forming in the shadows, Chicago's business ecosystem, functioning as it always had. "I have a proposition," Maya said finally. "Redline's expanding. We need someone to build out our enterprise accounts division. Someone who actually understands that behind every contract is a human being with kids and mortgages and favorite coffee orders." She named a number. It was 20% more than Halberd had been paying me. "You'd report directly to me, full autonomy to build your team, and—" She paused for effect. "We're about to announce a major push into Halberd's core market." The offer hung between us like a loaded gun on the table. Take it, and I'd have a platform for revenge. Turn it down, and I'd look like I was running scared. "I appreciate the offer," I said carefully, "but I need time. This isn't about just finding another job." Maya's smile was sharp as winter. "No, it's not. It's about what you do with what they gave you." I kept my expression neutral, but she caught something. Maya always did. "They fucked up the paperwork, didn't they?" she asked. "Left you with something useful. Let's just say their exit process could use some optimization." She raised her glass. "To corporate incompetence." We clinked glasses, and I made my decision. Not about the job that could wait, but about what came next. "Give me 6 weeks," I said. "I need to close some loops, tie up loose ends, then we'll talk." Maya nodded slowly. 6 weeks. But Rachel, whatever you're planning, make it elegant. Scorched earth is satisfying, but precision leaves a lasting impression. I finished my drink and stood to leave. When have I ever been anything but precise? The November air hit like a slap when I stepped outside. My Uber waited at the curb, but I waved it off and decided to walk. The city sprawled around me, all glass and ambition and carefully managed relationships. In my coat pocket, my phone buzzed with LinkedIn notifications. Former clients reaching out, checking in, expressing surprise at my departure. Each message a thread in a web I hadn't decided how to weave yet. But I would. In my apartment, Exhibit A waited in its drawer, patient as a spider. Maya's offer provided the platform. The relationships provided the ammunition. All I needed now was the right moment to strike. The stationery store on North Damon didn't sell revenge, but it did stock moleskin notebooks. I chose a simple one, black leather, unlined pages, no digital footprint, no cloud backup, no metadata, just paper and ink, the way strategists had planned campaigns since Sun Tzu was dictating to scribes. Back in my apartment, I cleared the dining table and began the work. Exhibit A spread before me like autopsy photos, each page revealing vulnerabilities in Halberd's client relationships. But raw data wasn't enough. I needed to transform information into intelligence. The first page of my new notebook became a title page. Simple block letters, field notes. Let someone find it later and think it was bird-watching observations or poetry attempts. The real content would be coded in plain sight. I started with risk assessment, creating my own classification system. Red clients already expressing dissatisfaction. Marcus Thompson at Vertex, furious about the botched middleware update. Sarah Volkov at Pinnacle, whose support tickets averaged 12 days to resolution. These were pressure points already bleeding. Yellow. Relationships in transition. Contract renewals coming up. Leadership changes. Mergers on the horizon. David Martinez at Atlas Corp, whose company just announced an acquisition. Lisa Park at Quantum, whose CFO was new and eager to cut costs. Volatility created opportunity. Green. My deep relationships, the ones where business had become personal. Margaret Stern at Aperture, whose daughter I'd written a recommendation letter for. James Wright at Meridian, who texted me photos from his marathons. These weren't just clients. They were allies waiting to be activated. Each entry included details Halberd's CRM would never capture, the backstories, the personal triggers, the unspoken politics, Margaret's bitter divorce from her co-founder, James's rivalry with Kyle from their Wharton days, Sarah's tendency to make major decisions during her morning swim at 6 a.m. I cross-referenced contract values, renewal dates, and relationship depth. Patterns emerged like constellations. The 3 largest accounts, Vertex, Pinnacle, and Atlas, represented 19% of Halberd's quarterly revenue. All 3 had me as their primary relationship manager. All 3 had expressed concerns in our last quarterly reviews that I'd carefully documented in my private notes. By midnight, I'd filled 30 pages with analysis, but the real revelation came when I mapped the timing. Halberd's fiscal year ended in March. Q4 numbers would be reported in early January. If key accounts departed in December, the impact would hit exactly when the board was reviewing executive compensation. Kyle's bonus was tied to revenue retention. I knew because he'd bragged about it at last year's holiday party. 3 whiskeys deep and loud enough for half the restaurant to hear. I set down my pen and studied my work. Not a vendetta list or a rage journal, but something far more dangerous, a strategic assessment of market vulnerabilities. Any business school professor would recognize the framework. Porter's 5 forces meets the art of war. Dressed up in innocent field notes. The notebook went into my desk drawer, next to Exhibit A. Twin weapons waiting for deployment. But weapons were only as good as the strategy behind them. I poured myself tea and stood at my window, watching the city sleep. Somewhere out there. Brad Kowalski was probably fumbling through my old client files, trying to understand relationships he'd never bothered to build. The new kid from Salesforce was likely creating PowerPoints full of buzzwords and empty promises. They thought relationships were transactional. Sign the contract, cash the check, move on. They'd never understood what I'd known from day one. Every business decision was personal. Every contract was a relationship. Every client was a human being who remembered who showed up and who let them down. My phone lit up with another LinkedIn notification. Another former client. Checking in? Another thread in the web. I didn't respond. Not yet. First, I needed to finish my map. Every general knew that battles were won in the planning, not the execution, and I was planning something that would make military historians take notes. The city stretched out below me, all lights and possibility. Halberd's Tower stood among the rest, indistinguishable in the darkness. They thought they'd cut away dead weight. They had no idea they'd armed their enemy instead. The email took me 47 minutes to write. 8 words. Thinking of you during transition season, Rachel. No corporate signature, no LinkedIn profile, just my personal Gmail, the one I'd shared selectively over the years. The subject line was blank intimate, like a note slipped under a door. I sent it to James Wright at Meridian First, a test case. James, who'd run the Chicago Marathon beside me 3 years ago when my knee gave out at mile 18. James, who understood loyalty the way soldiers did. His response came in 11 minutes. Rachel heard about Halberd. Idiots. Coffee tomorrow. My treat. I stared at the screen, feeling the first tremor of possibility. Not revenge. Not yet. Just connection. The most powerful currency in business. More valuable than any contract. Over the next 3 days, I sent 17 more emails, each one crafted with surgical precision, timed to arrive during the recipient's preferred communication window. Margaret Stern got hers at 2:15 p.m. after her daughter's therapy. David Martinez at 5:45 a.m. when he was reviewing his morning agenda. The responses flooded back like water through a broken dam. Can't believe they let you go. Brad Kowalski called yesterday. Disaster. When can we really talk? The new team doesn't get it. Are you somewhere else yet? Please say yes. I met James at Intelligentsia Coffee in the Loop. 7:30 a.m. sharp. He looked tired. Stress lines deeper than I remembered. His Meridian fleece was wrinkled, coffee stain on the sleeve. The James I knew was meticulous about appearances. How bad is it? I asked, sliding into the booth across from him. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Your replacement called me Jim 3 times. I've been James professionally for 22 years. Then he pitched me solutions to problems we solved in 2019. Brad means well, I lied smoothly. Brad couldn't find his ass with both hands and a map. James leaned forward, lowering his voice. He sent me a proposal with Apex Systems pricing still in the document. They're our competitor, Rachel. He's shopping the same garbage to everyone. I sipped my cortado, letting the information settle. I'm sorry, you deserve better. What I deserve is someone who remembers that my daughter has celiac, so lunch meetings need careful planning. Someone who knows I make decisions on morning runs, not in conference rooms. Someone who understands that Meridian isn't just buying software, we're buying trust. The coffee shop buzzed around us, the morning rush of professionals fueling for another day of combat. James studied me with those sharp gray eyes that had built a $30 million division from nothing. Where are you landing? He asked. Taking my time, considering options. Redline's been sniffing around our space, he said, too casually. Maya Kent called me last week. I kept my expression neutral. Maya's smart. She sees opportunity. She asked about you, whether the rumors about your departure were true, whether I thought you'd be interested in building something new. The cards were showing themselves. Maya hadn't just offered me a job, she'd been laying groundwork, preparing the battlefield. What did you tell her? James smiled, the first genuine one since he'd walked in. That Rachel Monroe doesn't build. She conquers. And that whoever gets you next better be prepared for what that means. We finished our coffee in comfortable silence. Outside, Chicago's financial district was waking up, suits streaming toward their towers, ready for another day of spreadsheets and small betrayals. I have a board meeting in December, James said as we parted. Contract renewals on the agenda. Brad's supposed to present. He didn't need to say more. The invitation hung in the air like a door left carefully ajar. Take care of yourself, James. Stay in touch. You too, Rachel. And when you're ready, really ready, let me know where you land. Meridian values relationships, the real ones. I walked back to my apartment, phone buzzing with more responses to my carefully crafted signals. Each message another confirmation Halberd had torn out their own nervous system when they'd escorted me from the building. Back home, I updated my field notes. Green lights turning greener, yellow showing cracks, red bleeding openly. The ping had been sent, the echoes were coming back. And they all said the same thing. We remember who you really are. Now it was time to remind Halberd. I accepted Maya's offer on December 1st, a Friday, exactly 3 weeks after Halberd had shown me the door. The war room she'd prepared at Redline was nothing like Halberd's sterile conference spaces. 22nd floor, corner suite, walls of windows overlooking the Chicago River. A solid oak table dominated the center, surrounded by leather chairs that had seen real decisions, not just PowerPoint marathons. Your battlefield, Maya said, gesturing to the space. No oversight, no committees, no bullshit, just results. I set up my command center methodically. Field notes in the locked drawer, Exhibit A in a fireproof safe, on the walls. I mounted whiteboards not for strategies that anyone could see, but for timing. Everything hinged on timing. The campaign would be surgical, no mass emails, no LinkedIn blasts, no digital footprint. Each client would receive a single letter, hand-delivered, personally crafted, the way business was done before algorithms decided everything. I spent the first week sourcing materials. Paper stock from a specialty shop in Wicker Park Heavyweight, cream-colored, with a texture that whispered expensive. Navy envelopes from the same place that supplied wedding invitations to Chicago's old money. A fountain pen that left ink like blood on snow. Each letter began the same way their name, handwritten, no company affiliation underneath, just human to human. For Marcus Thompson at Vertex, whose middleware crisis had cost him 3 sleepless weeks. Marcus, I've been thinking about our conversation last October, when you said technology should reduce complexity, not multiply it. Redline has been developing something I believe aligns with that philosophy. No sales pitch, just a conversation between professionals who understand that solutions aren't found in slide decks. For Sarah Volkoff at Pinnacle, whose support tickets were still averaging 2 weeks. Sarah, remember when we fixed your integration issue at 11 p.m. on a Sunday? You said then that response time was everything. I'm building a team that believes the same thing. When you're ready to expect better, I'm here. For David Martinez at Atlas Corp,